Hi, the point of this presentation is why see a naturopathic doctor for irritable bowel syndrome. So I'm not going to go through a long, boring introduction or talk about what IBS is. I'm going to just jump right into the material I want to get to. When it comes to digestive symptoms, there are no shortage of proposed treatment plans that you can find online. There are many different diets. I listed carbohydrate specific or allergy elimination diet, but I'm sure we could list a dozen more. There are all sorts of supplements that are also suggested, from probiotics, antimicrobial supplements, leaky gut supplements like glutamine, glucosamine. So the question is, why not just take these supplements, or why not just do one of these diets? Like, why go to someone for help? Well, in a sense, it depends upon where you are. I mean, if you have IBS, but you're like these people, and this picture is actually from a food eating competition, but if you're like them eating donuts, like a plate full of donuts, you really don't need to see someone for help for IBS. I mean, stop eating donuts in the morning. But this isn't the typical type of person that I see. I mean, it would be easy if this is what came in through the door, then I could just say, yeah, don't eat donuts. But usually the type of person who I see is the one who has seemingly done everything. They've gone to the conventional doctor, they've gotten the advanced testing done, they've tried different diets, they've tried different supplements, and sure, they're better off than they would be if they were like these people in the photo, but they're really not where they want to be, and they're still struggling with symptoms. So why don't people recover? Well, there are many different causes of digestive symptoms. Not everyone is the same. And what we really have is an overabundance of general health advice out there. So all this health advice, whether it's a diet or take your glutamine or take your oil of oregano, it's not necessarily bad advice in the general, but that doesn't mean that everyone who has digestive symptoms is going to do better doing all these different things. So the role of a naturopathic doctor is not to just blab off a list of possible treatments that you can get from a Google search. The role of a naturopathic doctor is to work with you to come up with a solution that fits your specific situation, not the general audience exactly. So I'm going to get into some specific ways that as a naturopathic doctor I can do that for people. First thing is that your medical doctor's lab tests suck. They have food allergy tests that miss food allergies. First of all, if you get a food allergy test and they're measuring what's called the IgE fraction, those are good for immediate allergies like tree and pollen allergies, but that's not what food allergies are. If you were given one of those skin prick tests for foods, you don't eat through your skin. They give people allergy tests that simply misdiagnosing allergies. And I'm going to get into some specific alternatives in a moment. They give parasite tests that miss parasites. Like every once in a while they give people these stool tests and they always come back negative. And finally, when they don't see answers with these tests that never really seem to find anything, almost never do, then they give people, the colonoscopy or the endoscopy. And I'm not going to say no one should ever get a colonoscopy or an endoscopy. You can get very important, possibly life-saving information from these tests if given when appropriately. However, they're kind of used as a screening test for digestive complaints because it seems that the medical doctors have no other way of evaluating people. And it's possible to have digestive symptoms and you get the colonoscopy and the endoscopy, you go through all that trouble, drinking all this disgusting stuff, having things put all the way up your body through every orifice, and they might not find anything. That's because these tests are good at finding severe gross pathology. They're not necessarily good at looking for the functional causes of digestive symptoms. So going back to allergy tests, we have different types of immunoglobulins. If you have an allergy, by definition, it means that your body's making antibodies or immunoglobulins against the substance. An IgE type of immunoglobulin, that's responsible for the immediate allergic response. You go outside, you breathe in tree pollen, you have a dust allergy, that's IgE. Running IgE tests for foods is going to miss a lot of food allergies. It'll only catch the food allergies, which are those immediate allergic responses. But most food allergies aren't the immediate response, they're delayed response. There are different types of immunoglobulins. IgA is across the mucosal membrane of the digestive tract. That'll be in the saliva. That's going to be in your gut. IgG is in the blood. That's responsible for the delayed food response. The type of time when you eat a food and maybe the next day you feel tired and you can't match it up with what you ate because it happened so long ago. So I'm going to go over some non-lab test methods to determine food reactions, and then I'm going to go over some blood tests that can be done. The simplest way is to do an allergy elimination diet. That's a diet where you eliminate all potentially allergenic foods like wheat, corn, dairy, soy, and about a dozen others from your diet, and you slowly reintroduce them one at a time. And if you log your symptoms upon reintroduction of each food, then you may be able to determine what foods you're actually reacting to. The problem with the allergy elimination diet is it's a pain in the neck, and most people don't want to do it. So therefore, we need to come up with better ways. Muscle testing or applied kinesiology, this is a really simple way to determine what someone might be reacting against. I don't want to say it's an allergy test per se, because technically speaking, an allergy test means that you're testing for immunoglobulins. That's by definition what an allergy test is. With muscle testing, with a trained and skilled practitioner, they can challenge people against different foods and substances. If you see what would be normally strong muscle go weak in the clear, then it means that there's a negative reaction against that substance, so the body doesn't like it. So it's a good way to determine maybe what someone shouldn't be eating at the time. And I do use this in the office. It's popular among many practitioners, mostly chiropractors, but other practitioners like me as an naturopathic doctor can utilize this. But at the same time, it's not perfect. And if you tell someone, oh, you can't have eggs or dairy and wheat anymore, sometimes it takes more convincing than, oh, your arm went weak when I challenged you against these substances. So these are sample results from the KBMO food allergy test. There are several different companies that will test blood for IgG antibodies. There are several different sub-fractions of IgG. What I like about KBMO, and one of the reasons I use them in the office, is they'll look for different fractions so they have a better chance of finding the food allergy. This is a finger stick test. It's kind of like doing a blood sugar test, where you pick the finger and you can collect blood at home. Sometimes I just do it with people. But it's a simple lab test that allows people to see what they are reacting against. This is a sample result from doctor's data, celiac and gluten sensitivity serum. I mean, some of these things like celiac response, that's not easy to find. There are different types of immunoglobulins again. There are different subfractions. So a test like this looks at multiple different, possible immune system responses against gluten. Because maybe the IgA isn't reacting, but IgG is. So, it's possible for someone to maybe do an IgG test against gluten, it comes back negative, and they think they're fine when they have an IgA reaction or a different protein is reacting. So the nice thing about this one for doctor's data is that it looks at various different reactions to help eliminate some of those false negatives. Besides food allergy testing, there are other ways to test the stool for inflammation. If you want to actually do a lab test for inflammation, you don't necessarily have to do a colonoscopy. A colonoscopy is great at looking for gross inflammation. It shouldn't be a general screening test for everything. Through what's called the functional stool test, and there are different companies that do this, Doctor's Data, Diagnostic Tech, Genova, many natural healthcare practitioners utilize these tests. There are actual chemicals in the stool that can signify inflammation or not. So the ones for the Diagnostic stool analysis is lysozyme and alpha-fetochymotrypsin. Total amount of circulatory IgA is a good way to look at inflammatory response. Is it elevated, which is showing the immune system is responding against a pathogen? If it's low, it's showing a suppressed immune system response. Chymotrypsin is a marker of pancreatic enzyme production. Calprotectin is another test for inflammation that helps to differentiate between irritable bowel syndrome and inflammatory bowel disease. So you can get all this information from just a stool test that doesn't cost, thousands and thousands of dollars like, some of these colonoscopies do. Of course, the colonoscopies are covered by insurance, but at least with this test, you don't have to, drink disgusting fluid all night. It's also clinically relevant because someone has irritable bowel, that doesn't mean why they have those symptoms. Irritable bowel syndrome is a syndrome. It's this collection of symptoms. It's not one specific disease. So is there inflammation in the gut with IBS? I don't know. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. Sometimes people think there's horrible inflammation because of their symptoms. You run the test and you say, hey, the problem isn't inflammation. Maybe you don't need to take all that aloe or other anti-inflammatories. Conversely, sometimes people hardly have any digestive symptoms, but because I might suspect that there's a problem in the digestive system, can run a test and see inflammation that's off the charts. Again, the goal of these tests is to move people away from trying general health tips and moving towards specific treatment that will work for them. Once you get information, then instead of saying, well, try this or try that, then you kind of know what's going to work. Here's a picture of garbage, because when people get conventional parasite tests from their medical doctor, that's what I think of these tests. I think these tests that they get are garbage. The problem with testing parasites is very simple. They're small and they're hard to find in the stool. Therefore, why are you relying completely on these microscopic exams of the stool when you know you're missing parasite after parasite? Just because the parasite's in the gut doesn't mean it's coming out in the stool. This is just a small part of the functional lab test results from Diagnostic. And the point of this is to show that there are different ways to test for parasites. Well, first of all, a lab like Diagnostic that specializes in this sort of thing, when you send the sample over to them, you're sending it to someone whose job it is to look at a microscope for parasites. You're not sending it to a place that does a zillion other things. So they might be better at that. The other thing is, besides depending upon microscopic exam, they will run tests for immunoglobulins against antibodies. Because these things are so hard to find in the stool, maybe they're there, but the immune system is responding to it. So when they're testing for an immunoglobulin, they're not looking for the parasite itself. They're looking, is your immune system making antibodies against the parasite? And they do this through saliva, because saliva has amounts of secretory IgA. Now, doing this for years, you can see people with amoebas on this test, people with H. pylori, a tapeworm has come out on people. I'm talking about tapeworm on someone who goes to a medical doctor and is told that they're fine, they don't have parasites. So, and they have other parasite markers. So, if there's a concern about parasites, don't do a stupid stool test that always says everyone's negative and then say, well, it's negative. You want to go to someone who can give you a good functional lab test to find out if you really do have parasites. This here is a sample of PCR testing from doctor's data, another functional lab. This is more for pathogenic bacteria, but what they're actually doing is they're looking in stool to do DNA analysis to see if there is this bacteria present, this pathogenic bacteria present. Then there's the question of how to treat parasites. Well, it kind of depends upon what someone has. I mean, if someone has Giardia, I probably wouldn't even tell them to bother, using herbs and supplements, because it's not going to respond. But then there are other common parasites like Amoeba histolytica that do respond to herbs. But it really helps if you know for sure that you have something, because you have to take antiparasitics, for a couple of months to go through several rounds of them in order for them to work well. I mean, don't just take some parasite cleanse from the health food store for a couple of weeks and then figure, that you don't have parasites. Because you might have to take it longer. You might have something that doesn't respond to that particular supplement as well. Moving away from lab tests, this is tongue analysis. It's really simple to look at people's tongues. And when you look at the tongue, that's the one place where you can actually kind of look at the muscle in the body itself. And you can figure out a lot. And why I'm showing this is to kind of make the point that not everyone is going to respond to the same supplements the same way. If you look at the one on the left, you see that deep crack down the middle. That shows that this person has excessive heat. Their body is producing a temperature to try to possibly catabolize a toxin or infection. That person with the excessive heat might not really do that good taking, fistfuls of oregano oil and garlic. And one of the problems that I have with a lot of the herbs and supplements that are sold for digestive problems is people just go ahead and they take a lot of really hot, spicy, caustic herbs. What maybe they don't need it. The person in the middle, you can look at that tongue is more floppy. There are those tooth mark or indentations around the side that shows that that basically dampness, excessive fluids are being held in. The tongue is a much more pale color. This person isn't as hot as the one all the way on the left. The back is a little discolored or grayish. I can see as grayish. Not everyone watching might really see that, which would indicate some problems in the lower digestive tract, possibly. So the one in the middle might do better with the oregano oil than the one on the left. The one all the way on the right, you can see that whitish coat in the middle that might indicate yeast, but also those red dots indicate excessive heat. As an herbalist, a tongue analysis is one thing I would do as part of an intake to help determine what someone may need. Because the bottom line is that you want to treat people, in holistic health. You don't want to treat the disease that they have. We hear a lot about holistic health and treating the whole person, but then as soon as someone has a problem, they'll go to Google and find a bunch of herbs or supplements for their problem and not them. Just because someone has IBS doesn't mean they are going to respond to the same thing as someone else who has IBS. And these people with these 3 different tongues, they might have some gastric pain, and then we'll just try the same herbs, even though you can see what's going on in each of them is very different. Okay, let's talk about the microbiome, milleu. All of us have these things in us. We all have some yeast or fungus in our digestive tract. We all have bacteria there. We have 10 times more microbes in our gut than cells in our body, in fact. So we have a lot more of these in our gut than of cells. And there are all viruses there. That's the microbiome, milleu. And this plays a part in terms of immune system regulation, detoxification, and also the production and absorption of nutrients. So it's super important. And there are many things that can affect it. Of course, getting a C-section at birth kind of sets people off in the wrong way. Antibiotics will kill the good flora. Birth control pills mess this up. Having a bad diet, toxicity, and stress can all play a part in disrupting the microbiome, milleu. So depending upon your unique situation, you want to work on any number of those things. If you're taking antibiotics every 6 months for a urinary tract infection, that's messing up your gut flora. So you want to work on that urinary tract problem in order to help digestion. If you have a stress problem, then maybe you want to work on the adrenals to help your digestive system. Everyone is an individual. And when you work on one part of the body, you're helping another part of the body. So part of a naturopathic assessment is, again, looking at all these different factors. So how to rebalance the microbiome, milleu? Well, sometimes it seems that people get this notion of just take lots and lots and lots of probiotics. These aren't probiotics here, these are just different pills, but just imagine they're all probiotics. And sometimes, people talk to me, they're like, we're taking this probiotic with this many billion, and that probiotic with that many other billion. They're taking how many billions and billions of probiotics, and they don't necessarily feel much better. Well, that's because probiotics, it's not that they don't work, they do work. They're just one piece of the puzzle. They're not the whole thing. And honestly, if taking 200 billion probiotics doesn't do anything, it doesn't mean that if you took 400 billion or a trillion probiotics, then all of a sudden that would do something. And then we have this actually silly idea that if you take probiotics, you're reseeding the gut with good bacteria. Problem is that if someone wants to sound intelligent in the world of natural health, what they do is they try to give out fancy mechanisms of actions. They'll be like, oh, if you take this, it does this to this chemical, or it triggers this receptor, or whatever. So you get all these ridiculous mechanisms of action that probably have nothing to do with reality or very little to do with reality. When you take probiotic supplements, you are not reseeding the gut with those probiotics. That is an absurd idea. First of all, we have many different types of bacteria in the gut. The probiotic you're taking contains just a few. And also, not all bacteria and probiotics are in a healthy gut in large amounts. Just an article about the gut from Popular Science. The gut microbiome, like any ecosystem, is a rich fluid and interdependent web that responsibly adapts to best exploit the resources provided, your food. So the gut is an ecosystem of bacteria, but the bacteria will compete against each other within that environment. So if you want to have a healthy, gut flora, you want to do things which are going to promote a healthy environment. That's how you really get a shift. You're not going to artificially get a shift by just taking some fistful of probiotic. Here's another article, this one more research. Impact of probiotic supplements on microbiome diversity following antibiotic treatment of mice. So they gave some mice antibiotics and they give them a bunch of probiotics. And what do they find? Probiotics did not appear to colonize the intestines themselves. However, it goes on that the probiotics did change the type of bacteria which were present. These results indicate that probiotics have a significant capacity to remodel the microbiome of an individual recovering from antibiotic therapy. In other words, the probiotics work, but they don't work by reseeding the gut. They're really more immune system modulators, which will affect how they'll affect how the microbial milieu is operating within the ecosystem. So the probiotics are a way of changing the environment in the gut, but you're not directly reseeding the gut. Therefore, just taking handfuls and fistfuls of probiotics under the notion that if you get enough in you that you're going to reseed your gut, that's just not how they work. And then we get these things about the special probiotic. Every company has some special probiotic. That's something else about the natural health field that maybe as a layperson, not everyone necessarily gets, but as a naturopathic doctor doing this for 9 years and making this at the time that I'm making this video, it's one company after the other with like probiotics, or now the big thing is like CBD oil, whatever. They will have this special one that no one else has. So we have different companies with good probiotics. They all work really well for some people, but everyone is different. Everyone's gut is a different ecosystem. How is there going to be one probiotic that works amazingly great on everyone? There really isn't. Especially since they're not reseeding the gut. Like if everyone was the same and everyone had just a few bacteria that they really needed and the probiotic really did reseed the gut, well then maybe everyone just needed the same one. Honestly, in my office, I keep a whole bunch of different probiotics, and I usually just do a kinesiology challenge to figure out which ones the person is responding best to. But probiotics are usually not the main thing I'm doing, and if someone has digestive symptoms, there's like a 90% chance that they're coming in on probiotics already, or they've already tried a whole bunch. So it better not be my main strategy. I'll also challenge people against prebiotics, and to be honest, I think for most people these work better. Prebiotics feed the gut flora, so they kind of give food, they're fuel for the good bacteria that you want. So they work well. Oh, by the way, just because I put a picture of a supplement up in this video, basically I'm trying to make something that's audio and visual at the same time to try to keep people entertained so they watch it. It doesn't mean I'm telling people to buy this particular supplement. These are just examples of prebiotics. I do keep these ones in my office. I keep some other ones in my office as well. But I'm not going to say that everyone should take, Thorns or Abinex, because everyone does not need this. It is a good prebiotic, but don't think because I have this picture up I'm telling anyone to go out and purchase it. I'm certainly not. But in terms of balancing the microbial ecology, prebiotics and probiotics are not the only thing that I have. Isopathics, these are specialized supplements. They're out of Germany. They're not even made here. And what some of these are, like you see Candida san, rokusan, these are made out of fungus, actually. Kind of similar to probiotics in that they're made out of the microbes, except these aren't living, these are inert. But basically you're giving the body metabolites made by these fungus. By the way, it's made out of Candida parasilosis, not Candida albicans. But when you take this, then the immune system will see these metabolites and you trigger an immune system response, and it kind of triggers the immune system to go after bad guys, help the good guys, and it helps to rebalance the gut flora. So these very strong immune system modulators, and these can also trigger very strong detoxification responses. Biofilm. Biofilm is a goo, basically, that microbes like yeast and bacteria can make. And this goo kind of covers the pathogens, so it helps, like it creates, so it's like kind of the pathogens are making this gooey environment for them to live in, but also protects them, because you can then take a bunch of antimicrobial stuff that doesn't even get to them because they're protected by the goo. So biofilm is something to consider, and many times either enzymes or essential oils can work to disrupt biofilm, and they will make other supplements or things that you do for irritable bowel or digestive symptoms respond better. Also candida, you look at biofilm as a problem. Anti-inflammatory supplements and things for leaky gut. There are so many products out there, and leaky gut is this big world, when it comes to natural health and digestive symptoms. I mean, leaky gut means that there's inflammation in the gut, therefore proteins are slipping through the gut lining and causing an immune system response in the blood. The problem is if you actually do stool tests on people and you look for inflammatory markers, not everyone with IBS necessarily has a leaky gut. They might have something else causing their digestive symptoms. Therefore, not everyone is going to respond by taking their leaky gut supplements. You also see a lot of these things, like GI Revive is an example of like a kitchen sink product. Basically, what they're saying is we want to make a product that's going to help as many people as possible a little. So they just throw all these different gut anti-inflammatories in, and voila, there's GI Revive. And I'm not saying it's a bad product, but to be honest, when I work with people one-on-one, I'm usually not going to look to say use GI Revive. Like it's not actually something I even keep in my office or use with clients. It's not actually a product. I don't even like it that much, to be honest. Usually, personally, because I'm more of an herbalist, I'm a naturopathic doctor, but I primarily use herbs. I'm going to, go through the history, through the tug analysis, between my kinesiology testing, between the lab tests, and usually I'll put together a specific herbal mix. So I give them the herbs here that they really need instead of just giving them a little bit of everything. But for certain, these kitchen sink products do help some people. So, if you have digestive symptoms and you're getting better on a product like this, then great, good for you. Use it. I'm not saying no, not everyone. I'm not saying no one should use this product. I'm saying, well, if you are using this product and you still have symptoms and you're not getting better, well, then maybe you're the type of person who should look to work with someone to get more specific answers. Because at the end of the day, what do you want? Do you want specifics for you or cookie cutter products meant for everyone? And everyone with a website who's selling you some type of supplement or herbal product or whatever it is, they're all going to do the same thing. They're going to throw out the actual concept of holistic health for the most part and treating the individual, and then tell everyone they need to do this or everyone they need to do that. But if what someone is doing in order to sell a product is telling everyone who has a disease that they all need to do the same thing, then by definition, there is no individual assessment, and you're not a holistic practitioner. I don't care how much they call themselves holistic practitioners. I'm going to end it at this slide because, I can go on for a long time talking about irritable bowel and digestive system stuff. But some big factors is stress lowers the immune system. We have secretory IgA going down our whole digestive tract. That's the immune system creating immunoglobulins to tag onto pathogens and toxins so it can get rid of it. When you're under stress, secretory IgA drops a lot. And that can disrupt the gut flora. It might mean you need to work on the adrenals. It might need homeopathics or flower essences are needed for, emotional stress, instead. But stress is a big factor. The other thing is toxicity changes the environment so bad bacteria, especially candida, can live. Many people who have these symptoms need to work on detoxification because it's just like if you leave cookies out and it attracts roaches, Well, yeah, I mean, you can put out all your bug sprays and bug bombs or whatever. The roaches are still going to come. If you have a toxic environment, whether it's heavy metals or pesticides, other toxins, and the body can't get rid of it, that is eventually going to attract all these guys, all these pathogens, and they kind of eat up the toxins and kind of almost work with the body to aid in detoxification as like the body's last-ditch effort to protect itself from toxicity. So, I mean, these are some issues that might come up and possible reasons why people don't respond well to just the general health advice and digestive system supplements. Okay, well, thanks for watching. If you're interested, you can check out my website. I'm also leaving a link here to a much older video on Candida, because that has actually more detail on many specifics to do for Candida and more specifics on digestive system symptoms. Okay, bye.